Alright folks, I need to vent about my brother-in-law, Aaron, 32M. This guy's been like a leech, always hanging around and mooching off us. Now, I'm all for family, but Aaron takes it to a whole new level. Let me give you some backstory. I'm Clyde, 35M, and I've been married to Edna, 33F, for 7 years now. We met in college. I was the quiet guy always tinkering with engines in the auto shop, and she was this vibrant art major who literally crashed into my life when her bicycle chain broke right in front of me. One thing led to another, and here we are, years later, still going strong. We've worked hard to build a good life for ourselves. I started my own landscaping business 5 years ago after working for others for a while. It wasn't easy, there were months when we barely scraped by, living on ramen and hope. But Edna stood by me, even picking up extra shifts at the local diner to help us get through the lean times. Now, the business is doing well. We're not rich, but we're comfortable. We even managed to buy a small house last year, nothing fancy, but it's ours. Aaron, on the other hand, can't seem to get his act together. He's Edna's younger brother, and he's always been the family's wild child. Growing up, he was the one always in trouble, skipping school, getting into fights, that sort of thing. Their parents, bless their hearts, always made excuses for him. He's just spirited, they'd say. He'll grow out of it. Well, he never did. Aaron bounced from job to job, always with some story about why it didn't work out. The boss was a jerk, the hours were unfair, the work was beneath him, there was always an excuse. And every time he lost a job, guess who he'd turn to? Yep, us. At first, it was just small things. He'd ask to borrow a few bucks here and there, or crash on our couch for a night. Edna would give me that pleading look, and I'd cave. He's family, she'd say. And I get it, I do. Family's important. But over time, it's gotten ridiculous. About a year ago, Aaron lost his apartment. Claimed his roommate bailed on him and stiffed him with the rent. He showed up at our door with a duffel bag and those puppy dog eyes Edna can never resist. Just for a few weeks, he promised. Until I get back on my feet. Those few weeks turned into months. He's practically moved into our guest room, eating our food, using our stuff, and not contributing a dime. He's always got some reason why he can't chip in for groceries or utilities. He's between jobs, he's waiting on a check, he had unexpected expenses, the excuses never end. The real issue started about 6 months ago when Aaron lost his latest job. Shocking, I know, and his car broke down. He claimed he couldn't afford to fix it, so he asked if he could borrow my truck to look for work. I've got a decent pickup that I use for my landscaping business, nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. I agreed, thinking it would be temporary. Big mistake. Aaron started using my truck like it was his own personal vehicle. He'd take it without asking, sometimes not returning it until late at night. I'd find fast food wrappers and empty soda cans in it. Once, he even let the gas tank run empty and didn't bother to refill it. When I confronted him about it, he just shrugged and said he was broke. I tried talking to him about it, but he just brushed it off. He'd say things like, "Come on, Clyde, we're family. What's yours is mine, right?" It drove me crazy. This is my work vehicle, not some toy for him to joyride around in. The situation's been causing tension between Edna and me, too. She knows Aaron's behavior is out of line, but she has a hard time standing up to him. They lost their mom when they were young, and I think Edna feels responsible for Aaron in a way. She's always making excuses for him, saying he just needs more time, more chances. The final straw came last week. I had an important client meeting early in the morning. This was a big potential contract that could really help grow my business. I went to leave, only to find my truck wasn't in the driveway. Aaron had taken it the night before and hadn't brought it back. I had to call an Uber and nearly missed the meeting. I was fuming the whole time, worried about making a bad impression on the client. When Aaron finally rolled in around noon, he acted like it was no big deal. He even had the nerve to crack jokes about me being uptight and materialistic. "It's just a truck, bro," he said with that smirk that makes me want to punch something. "You need to learn to share." I lost it. I told him he was no longer allowed to use my truck. I also said it was time for him to find his own place to live. Enough was enough. Aaron got all defensive, saying I was being selfish and that families should help each other out. He brought up how their parents always taught them to look out for each other, implying that I was somehow going against family values. Edna's caught in the middle of all this. She agrees that Aaron has gone too far, but she's worried about where he'll go if we kick him out. She keeps saying we should give him more time to get back on his feet. But how much time does he need? It's been a year, and he's made zero progress. I'm tired of feeling like an ATM and a free car rental service. I worked hard for what I have. Those long nights planning my business, the early mornings hauling equipment, the weekends spent doing estimates instead of relaxing, all of that was so we could have a good life. I don't think it's fair for Aaron to take advantage of us like this. But now Edna's upset with me for being harsh with her brother. She says I don't understand what it's like to have siblings, I'm an only child. She's worried that this will cause a rift in her family, that her dad will be angry with us for kicking Erin out. I feel like I'm at a crossroads here. On one hand, I love my wife and I want to support her. I know family is important to her. On the other hand, I feel like we're enabling Erin's behavior. He's never going to learn to stand on his own 2 feet if we keep cushioning his falls. I've tried to be patient. I've given him job leads, offered to help him make a budget, even looked into some vocational programs he might be interested in. But he always has some reason why these won't work for him. It's like he's allergic to responsibility. The whole situation is putting a strain on our marriage. Edna and I have been arguing more, and I hate it. We've always been a team, facing life's challenges together. But now it feels like Erin has driven a wedge between us. I don't want to be the bad guy here. I don't want to be the one who broke up the family or made Edna choose between her husband and her brother. But I also can't keep living like this. Our home doesn't feel like our own anymore. I'm constantly stressed about what Erin's going to do next, what he's going to break or use up without replacing. So, am I the asshole for putting my foot down and refusing to let Erin use my truck anymore? Am I wrong for wanting him out of our house? How do I balance being a supportive husband with maintaining my own boundaries? I feel like I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and things have gotten even more complicated. I appreciate all the feedback and support from everyone. Here's what's been happening. After our big blow up, Erin seemed to get the message. For about 3 days. He stopped asking for my truck and even started looking for jobs online. Edna was relieved, thinking the situation was improving. I was skeptical but hoped for the best. During those few days, Edna and I had some long talks about the situation. We reminisced about the early days of our relationship, how we'd struggled but always supported each other. She told me more about growing up with Erin, how he'd always been the problem child but also how he'd been there for her during some tough times. It helped me understand her perspective a bit better, even if I didn't fully agree with how she was handling things. But then, last weekend, everything went sideways. Edna and I had planned a nice dinner out to celebrate our anniversary. We'd made reservations at this fancy Italian place we've been wanting to try for ages. It was supposed to be a special night, a chance for us to reconnect and maybe put some of the recent tension behind us. As we were getting ready to leave, Erin cornered us. He had this big smile on his face and said he had great news. Apparently, he'd landed a job interview at a warehouse across town. The catch? The interview was scheduled for the next morning, right when I needed my truck for a big landscaping job. Erin laid it on thick, talking about how this could be his big break, how he'd finally be able to get back on his feet and out of our hair. He even promised to fill up the gas tank this time. Edna gave me that pleading look, and I felt trapped. I thought about all the times Erin had let us down before. The broken promises, the excuses, the messes I'd had to clean up. But I also saw the hope in Edna's eyes. She wanted so badly to believe that her brother was finally turning things around. Against my better judgment, I agreed to let him borrow the truck. I figured I could reschedule my job, and if it meant Erin finally getting work, it might be worth it. Edna was overjoyed, hugging me and telling me what a great guy I was. For a moment, it felt like maybe things were looking up. We went to our anniversary dinner, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. Edna tried to reassure me, telling me how proud she was of me for giving Erin another chance. We talked about the future, about maybe starting a family of our own soon. It should have been a perfect night, but that worry kept gnawing at me. Well, you can probably guess what happened next. The morning came, and no Erin. No truck either. Edna tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. Hours passed, and still nothing. I had to call my client and reschedule, potentially jeopardizing a good business relationship. Edna kept making excuses. Maybe he overslept, maybe his phone died, maybe there was an emergency. Finally, around 2 p.m., Erin stumbled in. He reeked of alcohol and could barely stand straight. Turns out, there was no job interview. He'd gone out with some old buddies and ended up at a bar, drinking all night and into the morning. My truck? He'd parked it in some lot and couldn't remember where. It took us hours to find it, and when we did, I was furious. There was a big dent in the passenger door, empty beer cans in the back, and somehow, he'd managed to crack the windshield. I was seeing red. This was my work vehicle, and I had to cancel a job because of his lies. When I confronted Erin, he just laughed it off, saying I could afford to fix it and that I shouldn't be so uptight. He even had the nerve to ask if we had any aspirin for his hangover. That was it for me. I told Erin he had 24 hours to get his stuff and get out of our house. No more chances, no more excuses. I was done being taken advantage of, done with the lies, done with the disrespect. Edna was upset, torn between her brother and me, but even she couldn't defend his actions this time. She tried to calm me down, saying we should talk about this when everyone was less emotional. But I was past the point of discussion. I felt betrayed, not just by Erin but by the whole situation. Erin spent the rest of the day alternating between begging us to let him stay and accusing me of tearing the family apart. He tried to guilt Edna, bringing up childhood memories and family obligations. He even called their dad, trying to get him to intervene on his behalf. As I write this, Aaron is packing his things, still trying to convince Edna to change my mind. She's a mess, crying and unsure of what to do. I'm standing firm, but the tension in the house is unbearable. I know I'm doing the right thing, but seeing Edna so distraught is killing me. She keeps looking at old family photos, telling stories about when they were kids. I can see she's hurting, and part of me feels guilty for causing that pain. But another part of me is angry that she can't see how Aaron's behavior is hurting us, hurting our marriage. I'm worried about what this means for our future. Edna and I have always wanted kids, but now I'm scared. What if our kids turn out like Aaron? What if Edna can't set boundaries with them? And what about Aaron himself? As much as I'm angry with him, I worry about where he'll go, what he'll do. He's never had to truly fend for himself before. How do I support my wife while also maintaining boundaries with her irresponsible brother? How do we move forward from here? I love Edna, but I'm starting to wonder if we're on the same page about what family really means. Is protecting someone the same as enabling them? I don't have the answers, and that scares me. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. Buckle up, because this situation took some unexpected turns. After Aaron left, things were tense between Edna and me for a while. She was upset about the way things ended with her brother, and I felt guilty for causing her pain, even though I knew I'd done the right thing. We were like ships passing in the night, both of us hurting, but not sure how to bridge the gap. About a week after Aaron moved out, Edna's parents got involved. They showed up at our door unannounced one Sunday afternoon, demanding to know why we'd abandoned Aaron. Apparently, he'd gone to them with a sob story about how cruel and heartless we'd been. I tried to explain our side of things, but they weren't having it. Edna's dad, a usually calm man, was red-faced with anger. He accused me of being selfish and turning Edna against her family. It got pretty heated, with him threatening to teach me a lesson about family loyalty. Edna's mom wasn't much better, crying about how we could be so cold to poor Aaron. I was about to lose my cool when Edna, to my surprise, stepped in. In all the years I've known her, I've never seen her stand up to her parents like that. She laid out everything Aaron had done, the lying, the drinking, the damage to my truck. She told them about the missed job interviews, the broken promises, the strain it had put on our marriage. Her parents were shocked. They had no idea how bad things had gotten. Aaron had been feeding them a completely different story, painting himself as the victim of our cruelty. As Edna talked, I could see the realization dawning on their faces. This led to a long, emotional family meeting right there in our living room. We learned that Aaron had been manipulating everyone, telling different stories to different people to get sympathy and support. He'd even borrowed money from his parents, claiming it was for rent when he was living with us for free. The real bombshell came when Edna's mom, in tears, revealed that Aaron had a gambling problem. Those job interviews and business opportunities he was always chasing? Mostly excuses to hit the casino or place bets. She'd found betting slips in his old room when cleaning, but had been too afraid to confront him about it. Edna was devastated. She felt betrayed and angry, not just at Aaron but at herself for enabling him for so long. It was a tough realization, but it brought us closer together. For the first time, we were truly united in how to handle the Aaron situation. We spent hours talking, crying, and trying to figure out what to do next. Edna's parents apologized to me for their initial reaction, admitting they'd been blind to Aaron's faults for too long. It was a hard conversation, but it felt like a turning point. We decided, as a family, that Aaron needed real help, not just handouts. Edna's parents found a rehabilitation program that specializes in gambling addiction. They offered to pay for it, on the condition that Aaron commits to the full program. Getting Aaron to agree wasn't easy. When we confronted him about the gambling, he denied it at first, then tried to downplay it. But faced with a united front from all of us, he finally broke down and admitted he needed help. It was the first time I'd ever seen him show real vulnerability. Aaron checked into the program last week. It's a 3-month intensive course, and he's not allowed any outside contact for the first month. It's tough, but we all agree it's necessary. As for Edna and me, we're working on rebuilding trust and establishing healthier boundaries. We've started seeing a family counselor to work through some of the issues this whole ordeal has brought up. It's not easy, we're having to confront some hard truths about ourselves and our relationship. But it feels like we're finally on the same page. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, but I'm also wary. Aaron has a long road ahead of him, and only time will tell if he's really committed to changing. For now, we're focusing on our own relationship and healing as a couple. Edna and I have been talking a lot about our future. We've realized that we need to be a united front, not just with Aaron, but with any challenges life throws our way. We're rediscovering why we fell in love in the first place, and it feels like we're growing stronger together through this ordeal. As for my business, I've had to work overtime to make up for the jobs I lost due to the truck incident. It's been stressful, but Edna's been incredibly supportive. She's even been helping out with some of the paperwork and scheduling. It reminds me of those early days when we were just starting out, facing every challenge together. I still have moments of anger when I think about everything that's happened, but I'm trying to channel that energy into positive changes. We've set up a home office so I can manage my business more efficiently, and Edna's looking into taking some online classes to boost her career prospects. For now, we're taking it one day at a time. We're hopeful for Erin's recovery, but we're also prepared for setbacks. Whatever happens, we've learned the importance of setting boundaries and sticking to them. It's not always easy, but it's necessary for our own well-being. Update 3, it's been 3 months since my last update, and I've got some surprising news to share. Erin completed his rehab program last week. To everyone's shock, including mine, he seems like a completely different person. The program really seems to have gotten through to him. When he got out, he asked to meet with Edna and me. I was hesitant, but Edna wanted to give him a chance, so I agreed. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown where Edna and I had our first date. It felt symbolic somehow. Erin looked different, healthier, more put together. The constant nervous energy that used to surround him was gone. He seemed calmer, more focused. The first thing he did was apologize. Not a vague, generic apology, but a specific, heartfelt one. He acknowledged every way he'd hurt us, every lie he'd told, every boundary he'd crossed. He didn't make excuses or try to justify his actions. He just owned up to all of it. He then laid out his plan for moving forward. He's found a job, a real one this time, at a local manufacturing plant. It's not glamorous, but it's steady work. He's also continuing with therapy and attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings regularly. He even showed us a 60-day sobriety chip he'd earned. The biggest surprise? He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, not for the full amount of damage he'd caused, but a significant portion. He explained that he'd sold his gaming systems and some other electronics to start paying us back. He also set up a payment plan to cover the rest over time. I'll admit, I was skeptical at first. We've been down this road before, with Erin making promises he couldn't keep. But as we talked, I could see real change in Erin. He was taking responsibility for his actions and making concrete steps to improve his life. He told us about the work he'd done in rehab, confronting the root causes of his addiction and irresponsible behavior. He talked about the coping mechanisms he'd learned, and how he was working on rebuilding his self-esteem in healthy ways. It wasn't just talk, he had specific plans and goals. Edna was overjoyed, of course. She hugged Erin and cried, telling him how proud she was of his progress. I could see the relief and happiness on her face. It was like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. As for me, I'm cautiously optimistic. I told Erin I appreciated his efforts and the apology, but that trust would take time to rebuild. He understood and said he was prepared to prove himself through actions, not just words. We've agreed to take things slow. Erin's not moving back in, but we're open to family dinners and occasional visits, as long as he continues to respect our boundaries. He's even offered to help out with some landscaping jobs on the weekends to make extra money for repayments. It's strange to feel hopeful after everything we've been through, but I do. Erin's got a long road ahead of him, and I'm sure there will be bumps along the way. But for the first time in years, it feels like we might actually have a shot at being a real family. Edna and I are doing better than ever. This whole experience, as difficult as it was, has made our relationship stronger. We've learned to communicate better, to stand united, and to balance family loyalty with self-respect. We've even started talking about having kids again. It's not an immediate plan, but it's back on the table. We both feel more prepared now to handle the challenges of parenthood, having navigated this difficult situation together. I'm not naive enough to think everything's perfect now. I know recovery is an ongoing process, and there's always the risk of relapse. But I'm proud of how far we've all come. Edna's found her voice and learned to set boundaries. I've learned to be more patient and understanding. And Erin? Well, Erin's finally growing up.